Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to go over 3-point editing. Up until this point I've shown you how to set in and out points in the source monitor and then dragging and dropping it down to the timeline to create a new sequence. And I would suggest before we even proceed to go further, if you haven't already, go back to my older videos that goes over the UI, the program monitor, the source monitor. I do an overview of all of the interface and all the different windows. Watch that first before you, and really understand that before we proceed into 3-point editing. All right, so what is 3-point editing? So 3-point editing is just another method outside of just dragging and dropping clips onto the timeline, and I do that all the time. I drag and drop, and in fact that's how I first learned how to edit, is just dragging and dropping clips, and I'm guilty of that. And it's not, and I don't really mean guilty. Like, I shouldn't feel guilty about doing something that works, right? Drag and dropping is a perfectly fine method. 3-point editing is just a little bit different method or way of bringing clips into the timeline. And I'll just say it right now, compared to drag and drop, the 3-point editing method is more precise. I'm not sure it's much faster. In fact, there will be some growing pains when you first start out. So just be patient with yourself. And but I think over time, if you really put a lot of practice into it, you're going to find that, in fact, over time, when you start doing 3-point editing, I think the process or your project will actually become more time efficient compared to dragging and dropping. But in any case, use whatever you want, but let's talk and learn about 3-point editing so that you have an extra tool at your disposal. All right, so I have a clip here on my timeline, and that's going to help us out to understand 3-point editing. And I'm going to go ahead and bring in another clip here and put it in my source monitor. And you can use any clip that you have at your disposal, use that. So I'm going to go ahead and double click the icon. Remember, double clicking the icon, be intentional. And there's a clip that I'm going to use and edit and put it down into my timeline. And naturally, my old method, I would just drag and drop a clip into my sequence. Now, in my earlier video, I showed you that setting in and out points is far more efficient than dragging the entire clip. So let's go ahead and set an in and out point. So I'm going to go ahead and play forward with L. Remember JKLIO. And I'm waiting for a part that's not going to have all that shaky camera. All right, here we go. This is good. So if I set an in point there, oh, you see how the exposure dropped there? Maybe I don't want that, so I'm going to go after that exposure change and change my endpoint, which you can do in the source monitor. So the endpoint is right there. I'm going to change it now to the new playhead position and hit I there. So that's my new endpoint there. And now I need an out point. Otherwise, I'm going to be still dragging this entire light gray shaded area. I don't want to do that. I need to find my out point. All right, let's just keep it simple, and I'll just set my out point there by hitting O. So I've got my in point. That's going to be the first point in our 3-point edit. I've got my out point. That's going to be the second point in the 3-point edit. And now the goal is to look for the third point and place it down into a timeline. So where exactly is the third point? Well, the third point is actually going to be here in the sequence. And it can be the playhead. I'll talk about the difference between the playhead and something else. I'll disclaim that right now. But right now, let's just use the playhead. But the playhead is going to be the third point. And how this works is wherever my playhead is, the third point, when I am ready to edit my clip, my source clip into my timeline using 3-point editing, the in point, the first point, is going to match and align itself to the third point, the playhead, and the rest of the clip will lay itself down on the timeline, and the out point will be somewhere over here. That won't match to anything other than it'll just, whatever the rest of the clip will lay down on the timeline. So let me go ahead and just drag it first so you can see what I'm talking about. So basically I'll manually do it so you can see it. So if I just click and drag, it's going to do something like this, right? It's going to land itself with the first point, the end point, landing and matching to the third point, and then the rest of the clip sits on the timeline or the sequence there. I'm going to go ahead and undo that. And now I'm ready to do the actual method of 3-point editing, which is using these two key functions here. Let's start, one is called insert, the other one's called overwrite. And you can see the hotkey that's associated with each function. There's the insert with the comma, and there's the overwrite. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and drop this clip in using one or the other. And so you can see what happens here. Here we go. I'm going to hit period for overwrite, or you can just click on this icon here. Let's go ahead and just click on the icon so that you can see it. Click, and there you have it. It went ahead and placed it and matched it where my previous playhead position was. And as soon as I hit overwrite, the playhead jumps to the second point or the end of the clip for the next clip to be laid down. I'm going to hit Command Z and show it to you one more time. In fact, I'm going to hit the up arrow. If you don't know, up arrow on and down arrow goes to the edit points of, or the end or start of each clip. So I'm going to go to the end here, and I'm going to hit overwrite again, but this time I'm going to use the keyboard function period to show you that you can use the keyboard, which is a little bit more efficient here. Here we go, period. And there you have it. So here is how we do an overwrite edit, or the basics of 3-point editing using the overwrite function. Again, 3-point editing is setting the in point, the out point, and then finding that third point down on the timeline.